Good evening and welcome to Tuesday's regular Fees from It episode. We are a little bit late, maybe 24 hours late. We apologise for that. Tonight we're going to discuss the win over Crystal Palace and have a little maybe look at possible fixture congestion at Tottenham Hotspur. Believe it or not, we thought we wouldn't have any fixture congestion, but it looks like we're going to. And that'll be it. So joining me this evening from Austria, Hair HG, how are you?
Yeah, HG.
Hair Globetrotter.
I am sick as a dog. I've been off work today, so yeah, if I cough and splutter and sneeze and whatever, then that is part of the problem. But yeah, otherwise I'm all right. It's just one of those things. I think spring started to spring a bit early, so we all got a bit cocky on Monday because the sun was out. It was like 17, and yeah, I may have caught my death doing it, but otherwise I'm all right.
Well, I can tell you, I'm sat in the garage as usual, and it's about 9 degrees. So I have got a nice little blanket, an old man blanket on my lap. So last night's show, we had 4 people lined up. I messaged everyone in the morning saying, if you can't do it, let us know. And I gradually got messages of everybody dropping out. The only person that was supposed to be there last night, who is here tonight, is Mr. Diver. How are you, Steve?
I'm very good. Had my curry last night as a surprise family dinner. That's why I wasn't on last night. But I'm back tonight. So yeah, I'm good. Good to talk about a win, isn't it?
And you indeed, as you often are, were there at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Let's start at the beginning, of course, the starting lineups. So we obviously had the Bentancur Basuma axis that's been talked about. No Sarr. We later discovered, courtesy of Steve, that Sarr had been carrying a back injury since the AFCON. And then otherwise, HG, what we expected?
I think so. I mean, we knew Richarlison was out, so I guess it was who was going to play down the left. Was it going to be Johnson? Was it going to be Werner? Because Johnson has played there before. You might think that since Johnson is a Spurs player, he might have got the nod over Werner, who's still on loan. But yeah, I think maybe some people were surprised that Emerson got the nod again, although I wasn't. To me, he's the clear person to play if Porro's not available. But yeah, there's always the odd person who wants to see Dragosine or some kind of switch at the back. But otherwise, it's pretty much you know who's coming in if certain players are out.
Steve, was there any vibes in the stadium that we'd see any different from that at all? Like the suggestion of playing 3 at the back with Dragosine, or him playing right back, or even Skip playing right back was mooted last week.
No.
Move along. What was the atmosphere like before the game, Steve?
It was a weird one for atmosphere, actually. Before the game, it was reasonable. The sun came out. Obviously, the trumpeter I'm big fan of, got the crowd going a bit. Then it just kind of died down, a bit like us all first half, really. So pre-game is all right. It's not, if we go back to kind of, beginning of the season, a few games in, the stadium seemed to be rocking at every opportunity, but then we won, 10 on the bounce, so how many it was, or didn't lose for 10 at least. So not amazing, but not toxic like it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think after the Wolves game, there's going to be a bit of nervousness, and we haven't played well for quite a long time, have we? And as HG said many times, we're not really playing Ange ball yet, but we'll come on to that.
Hang on a second. I'm not being funny. I think fans only get involved when they think we're going to lose, right? And it sounds awful, but I think a lot of Spurs fans showed up to the Palace game and thought, it's Palace. Spurs will do whatever they need to do to win, and I just get to watch it. And it really annoys me that fans are like that. Like, it's just, I go to support my team. I don't go to, if I wanted to sit and watch, I could watch it on TV. I mean, here I can watch it on TV. You guys can't. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's, if you're there and you just want to sit down and watch the game, like, that's just not me. I'm sure that there are lots of people who want to do it, and that's fine for them. I wish that Spurs fans saw every game as a chance, as if we're playing someone who could beat us. Because, if we're playing a good team, then the stadium is fantastic and somewhere you really want to go. And it's not an easy place to play. But we've seen in the last few games, teams have showed up to White Hart Lane. We've played a number of home games recently, and it's been kind of dead. And it only really gets going when the players do something, and I hate that. Like, I don't need the players to do anything to start me wanting to be part of the action per se.
I think that's always been the case, even at the old stadium. Whenever I went, to be honest, we played smaller teams.
Yeah.
The atmosphere was never quite as good, and I think there's a lot of people blame the stadium for the atmosphere or this and that, but I think it's always been, like I would say, I was at White Hart Lane so many times when it was, you could hear a pin drop. But yeah,
you mentioned atmosphere. Actually, I meant to say this. The Palace fans really disappointed me. HG and I went to Palace away earlier November, December,
Halloween.
I was at
end of October. End of October it was, yeah.
October. Time flies. And the atmosphere there was great. And obviously they're known for having a good atmosphere. And typically your away fans are the more hardcore and give it more. They were dead. Like, there was not a peep out of them until they scored. And then there's not a peep out of them again for the rest of the game. We had the rather ironic, is this the library? And it's like, well, you're not making any noise either until you made that chant. So kind of, it's both sets have got to go at each other to get a bit of atmosphere. So Palace fans were dead quiet, which really shocked me.
Oh, interesting. Okay. We've got loads of stills we've been doing the last few Mondays when we look back at games. That was something we've started doing. I hope you enjoy them. Please let us know. Jack has made a very good point. Please do smash that like button. And if you don't always subscribe, please subscribe. And then you can comment as well. And if you're watching afterwards, leave us a comment, because again, it helps us and helps the algorithm grow the channel. MS has said, I think the atmosphere is stale now because fans realise we will end the season yet again with no trophy. I'm not sure that's probably the reason. I think a lot of the fans need the team to get them going. There is still this problem with the mix of the stadium, who's sitting where. I know Franco's always trying to get a bit of a atmosphere going in the south stand, the group, all the people around him are, but there's just a bit of a mix with who's there. You do get some of the I don't want to say hospitality area, Steve, because I'll upset you, but the expensive general admission seats, is it 18? They're like $2,000, aren't they, for those season tickets? Yeah, 1882.
And that worked out as an experiment, let's face it. Having more expensive tickets and what's supposed to be the heartbeat of your stadium in your main stand, that's not worked out for the club at all.
No, I mean, it would be fine if we made a noise. Like, those tickets would sell really well if we made a noise, but we don't. So, like you want to pay for those tickets, and it's Arsenal at home or Man City at home, 2 games we haven't seen yet this season. Those games, you'll have a fantastic atmosphere. But for Luton and Forest, probably it will be like it's been against Wolves and Palace and Brighton before it. Like, it annoys me. Like to me, football is not really entertainment. Like, obviously I want it to be entertaining and I want to see Spurs win, but I consider myself part of it. Like, I don't just go there to watch. It just, too many old blokes. It may be, but still, like, don't you want to be young again? Like, if you're old, like, no one's saying you got to stand up for 2 hours, but you can still make a noise. You can still be part of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm the odd one.
No, I don't think you are. And I think, there's a lot to be said for the atmosphere at the moment. And I think part of it probably is due to us being a little bit dejected that there's going to be no trophy this season, crashing out early. But I think it's also just, the performances haven't been great. And they lead into the atmosphere. Like, one of the biggest draws we had early on yesterday was when we went 1-0 down, and finally the crowd were like, "Oh, we've got a job to do here. We need to crack on with it." And it's like, well, to your point, HG, crack on with it earlier.
Yeah, it's weird. There was a tweet doing the rounds on Twitter today, written by a German football fan, talking about the differences between German football and English football, and like, obviously there are massive differences between how the clubs are owned and all the rest of it, if that plays a part. But one of the replies said that when it came to like COVID games, that there was very little difference between like when fans are in the stadium and when fans aren't. The home teams won about the same amount of times, Whereas in German football, when they played COVID games, it was much more clear that the away team had a better chance. And so I just I don't know the truth of that. I didn't check the statistics to see if he was right, but that they were amazed that there wasn't much difference between fans in the stadium and fans out the stadium. And I can kind of understand it. Like, you can boo the other team. Yeah, like maybe it will spur them on to play better, because that has happened before. We've seen good teams come to Spurs and really, quieten the crowd pretty quickly. But if they're not very good and do you know what I mean? Like, considering how we equalised was basically through Brennan Johnson, not even harrying really, but just being there or thereabouts, and making a mistake. I want to believe that the crowd can play a bigger role. I guess that's all I'm saying. Like, the idea that we can't, it just doesn't sit well with me.
I think the comment here about at the beginning of the season we started every game quickly. The last few games we haven't started quickly, and I think if the team starts quickly, the crowd does get up quicker. And I think that's the team probably need the crowd to get them up, and it's that vicious circle of we just never get there. But
one of you has to start it. You can't just wait for the other person. Like, because this is it. Like, there is no away fan stopping me from singing. There are players stopping my players from playing, right? So I am completely in charge of the noise that I make, and so it's a bit like, we're waiting for the team to do something. Like, come on, like, just take some responsibility. Like, I understand tickets are expensive. I understand that changes a lot in some people's eyes, but rich people can sing too. Do you know what I mean? There's no maybe I just can't imagine that there are wealthy people out there who think, you know what, I want to go and watch football, and I'm going to watch Tottenham this week, and next week I'm going to watch Arsenal. Like, that doesn't exist to me. They are Spurs fans. Like, anyone who's there to watch the game and not there because they're Spurs fans, well, they're in hospitality anyway, and they may not even be in like that. I can understand. But hospitality is what percentage, Steve, of the actual people in the stadium?
8,000, isn't it?
Yeah, 8K out of 62.
Yeah, so what's that, 10, 12%? Like, it's just, there are other people there that can make, and if Palace aren't doing it, that doesn't help. But still, that just means it's easier for us to actually be heard. I mean,
we've heard the South Stand when it's like in full chorus and it's loud, and it's just getting it going, isn't it? And they try with the trumpet, but
maybe we need a whole brass band. Maybe that will work. The trumpet, get a saxophone out, get Uncle Albert on the piano. That might get everyone going. Play some Chas and Dave hits from the 80s. I don't know what it will be, but it's something's got to be.
I might clip that, HG.
What?
Anyway,
Uncle Albert on the piano, tinkling on the ivories. Yeah.
To be fair, though, the trumpeter has helped the atmosphere come back a bit, and I think it's also helped people get in for the beginning of the game. Because you did used to have that would work well. Can he play saxophone?
He can do anything he wants, Ange. Surely.
That's
all right. My rant is over with the fans. It just, but anyway.
Right. So,
no.
Let's talk about Timo and he's trying to go now. Gary Lineker said a few times on his podcast recently about, I don't know why strikers don't go around keepers. And obviously, Timo tried it and made a hash of it. Was this because he had too long, HG, or what was your thought?
Because he's not good enough. Is that awful? Can I say that? Like, the thing is, like, when I played 30 years ago, you put me in a one-on-one and I cracked my pants too. I couldn't do it. Like, it is a skill that you learn. Some people are just better at it. He never went round the keeper. I mean, that's the long and short of it. And it was interesting that when the third goal went in, Son didn't even try. Like, when you're flat on like that, the keeper's just shoot the ball early, or I don't know. I mean, again, I'm no expert, so I shouldn't say anything. But to me, Werner is just not good at one-on-ones, and he's better off just sticking his foot through the ball and hoping it misses the keeper.
Yeah, Steve, he neither went round him nor shot early, so he picked the worst of two options, didn't he? And there was like a few. I won't repeat the language, but there's a few choice words said both before and after that. Like, as soon as we stood up and we saw who had the ball, who was through, there was a bit of a this ain't going to be a goal, is it? Whereas when Sonny got the ball on the 88th minute, we were pretty sure it was going to go in.
That is telling, isn't it? That we see Werner going through, but none of us are thinking this is a certain goal. And maybe it takes a really, really good player for you to think that. Like Gary Lineker was a fantastic striker, and so for him it might be the easiest thing in the world to do. But sadly for Werner, it's not there.
Yeah. What was the bench reaction, Steve?
I didn't actually see it, to be fair.
Was this because you were still livid about your dinner?
Yeah, I wasn't impressed with the dinner. Cardboard is served. But yeah, I think I was more moaning to the guy sits next to me, to be honest, rather than looking at the bench.
Okay. So next chance started all the way back at left back, where Bissouma sort of managed to lose his man. Played a nice little 1-2 with Udogie, who chipped it. There he goes, playing it to Udogie, and he chipped it over the player. Bissouma rolled it to Madders, who nice little body movement, managed to get away. Played it out to Kulu. And right in the centre circle there, we see Mr. Emerson motoring on. Now, could that be a tough and easier pass there, do you think, HG, just to slip it to Sonny? Or is it a tough one, do you think?
I think to hit it round the defender from there is quite tough, because you've got to get the angle right and you've got to get the speed right. Looking at that, maybe kind of striking it low, kind of behind the number 2. Is it Anderson? I guess I don't know. It's Joel Ward. If you hit it low and hard, maybe he can't react in time, and maybe that would go to Son. But I think around the defender, to me, that's quite a difficult pass from there. Like I don't blame him too much for finding it difficult, because it's also not really his game. But looking at that, to somehow find Son without avoiding the defender and the keeper, I think that's quite difficult.
Yeah. And then obviously we saw it went wide. Steve, I don't know if you noticed, was given Werner is very quick, he seemed to be a bit behind the play there.
Yeah, and I think he checks his. Well, I know he wasn't particularly on then for a ball in, but he seems to check his runs a lot. So he's been caught offside so much. A lot of time, I don't know whether his confidence and his abilities or lack of confidence in his abilities the rest of the team, but I don't know if anybody else has noticed, there's quite a few times, particularly Dogie, when they're not playing the ball in behind for him, and he's either getting caught offside, so he runs and then eventually they do pass it, or he gets caught. I can't remember what happened in the build up to that, to be honest, because I wasn't particularly looking at him as looking at what on earth Emerson was about to do with it. So again, we didn't particularly have faith at Emerson to choose the right option, did we?
Yeah. And that was pretty much the sum of our chances, wasn't it? I think in the first half.
Yeah, I remember Bentancur slashing one over, like as if it was like a rugby. But again, we just don't shoot. Like, we had all the ball, but we don't really try and shoot. We don't really try and commit defenders. Like, it's happened to us a number of times where teams have shot and got a couple of lucky deflections and it's fallen for them. It almost happened at the weekend for Palace, where they had the one that Vicario came out and got in the first half, I think it was. But it's just we don't do that. I don't know if we're trying to score the perfect goal, but it feels as if, like, if you've got 8 or 9 in front of you, yeah, sure, they might block it. That is true, but they also might block a cross. They also might block whatever it is you do later on. So if you've got half a yard or you think something could happen, why not try? It's like you don't want to be having pot shots every 3 minutes, but you've got to do something different. You can't just go side to side.
Yeah.
So you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Wayne.
That's the accountant for you, right there. Second half. So, penalty, yay or nay, boys?
For me, yeah, but it's interesting because I saw this happen, and they've got I don't know if people have seen, they've got little replay screens on the bench, right? I can't quite see them from where I'm sat, but I can normally guess by the reaction of the players and when they look at it, what's going on. And I agree with everybody in chat. I think it was a penalty, and most people do seem to think it was a penalty on social media. But the reaction from Spurs bench was pretty 50-50, to be fair, and wasn't as livid as it normally is. So, yeah, I'm not convinced the players thought it was a penalty, but I mean, looking at the clip there, or still there, yeah, got to be.
Yeah, look, I didn't think it was when I watched it live, and when I saw that replay, because that was pretty much the only replay we saw. I'm still not convinced. Like, I think Werner's looking for it. I don't think Werner really knows what he wants to do with the ball. He's waiting for a challenge. And the question is there, like, does Munoz take him out, or does he go into the back of Munoz's leg, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, I understand that, you know, he's like, he's on his feet. Like, if Munoz leaves his feet, then you think you'd give it as a penalty, right? Because he doesn't get the ball. But when he's just standing there, it felt like it would have been soft. And had I been a Palace fan, I'd have probably hated the call had it been given. So yeah, like, I'm not surprised it wasn't given, because I think Werner was probably just looking for it and waiting for something that in England that's seen as being somehow outside the kind of the spirit of the game.
So I've just seen Harry Kane celebrating, so I'm guessing it's 3-0.
Wow.
So Bayern will be going through. Eric Dyer in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Who'd have thought it? I just think if you look at the two angles at the same time, he's stretching his right leg there, Munoz.
Yeah.
So it's not his natural stride pattern that Werner's gone into the back of. So I think that's why I think it probably is a penalty. But the way he went down just seemed a bit soft, and I can see why it wasn't given. But given, you look at the one that Son gave away at Brentford on the opening day.
Yeah, which shouldn't have been a penalty either. I think that it looks like there that Werner's trying to protect the ball, right? So he's almost like saying, if you come for it, I'm going to put my foot there and you're going to kick me, and then it's going to be a penalty. Like, I don't blame Werner for trying for it, for playing for it. I think in that situation, it's probably a smart move. But when you play for it, in England at least, people will think, well, then I don't really want to give you that penalty, because it's clear that you're and anywhere else on the pitch, and you'd get the foul. You play for a foul, you get the foul. But in the penalty box, they don't really like you playing for fouls. It seems, in England at least, against the spirit of the game.
I mean, Jamie Vardy's made a career out of those penalties, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
Just saying, like what they're saying in the chat, unless you're playing against us. Yeah, I do think we've been hard done by some decisions in the box, both for and against us this year.
Yeah. Yeah, King saying if he's wearing the Liverpool top at Anfield, that's a pen. That's a very good point.
Yeah,
especially against Spurs.
Like, maybe if the fans are more involved, that could swing the ref too. I mean, like, if it's just a once in a lifetime opportunity that the fans are like, oh, we've got something to maybe cheer for. I don't know. Like, it's got to be intimidating. You've got to make it seem like the referee has no choice but to give you a penalty. And Spurs are just kind of passive. I think, and it's not just the fans; it's the team as well. It's kind of, we're going to wait to see what happens. But no, like, take the game by the scruff of the neck and make something happen. It's I feel like if it's a cultural thing at the club or whatever, but it feels as if we all kind of just are happy to watch and wait and see.
I think also Ange, although we all like the way Ange is respectful and stuff, you look at Klopp and Arteta and Pep, the fact that they badger, it does help them get decisions, which is ridiculous. It shouldn't be like that. And Gov is saying, are we too nice again? Probably sometimes we are. Yeah, I just wanted to shout out Paul. Hope you're well, Paul. Yeah, the refs' interpretation do vary wildly, which is, they're all professional now. 15 years ago, they all had other jobs. And now they are there. They get brought in for training. They look at incidents. I appreciate there'll be some things that one ref will see slightly different, but there seems to be a lot of variation in a lot of the decisions now, which is.
I feel like it's interesting that a lot of fans they expect the referees to be as unbiased as possible, as professional as possible, when every single fan. It feels like a lot of fans can't do that themselves. Like, I'm a Spurs fan first and foremost. I want Spurs to get all the decisions we want, and then to not get the ones that should have been. Like, it's just weird that referees. You're right. Like, some of them may have grown up with this inherent bias against Spurs. A lot of them seem to be from the Northwest, which would indicate that maybe Spurs is not something they've really thought about that much. But it doesn't help when so many things are subjective, and you see, like, I mean, the goal that who was it? There was a goal in the Carabao Cup final that wasn't given because the guy was blocking a runner, and then 1 week later, the goal was given, even though the guy is basically doing the same thing. That's the type of thing that I think can annoy fans, because why would one be given and the other one not? And it's almost certainly because of the teams playing. Like the referees, that to me is like, if you think the guy is interfering with play, then okay, I guess you say it's not a penalty, or that it is a penalty. I don't know. It's frustrating. It is frustrating because you don't really know what you're going to get. Like, I think I saw that Darren England was the VAR at the weekend, and I think he was the VAR when the whole Liverpool thing happened. So I'm sitting there thinking, if we're going to go to VAR, it's probably going to go against us this time.
That was beautifully dropped into Samantha's comment there, HG. Can we say we are too nice and passive when we overtly stole 3 points from Liverpool due to a very bad call? I mean, that wasn't our fault, was it? That was poor communication between the officials. But I do get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that case, like, nice and passive would have been like, oh no, like, off you go, Liverpool, go and score a goal at the other end. We'll even things up because it's like you want the referees to get it right, but they're like, it feels as if a lot of fans, they want there to be a hard and fast rule for everything, and that's never going to happen. So then it is down to referees, and like it makes sense to look at referees over time and see, like, do they favour certain teams over others? Like, we all feel that they do at certain occasions, but do we watch every game? No. So, like, is Paul Tierney going to favour Manchester United because he's from that area? Right, like, or is he going to hate them because he's from that area and doesn't support Man United? Like, there are so many things that you could probably look at, and I think after a while, it would be like statistics. You'd find something to back whatever you think to be true up.
Yeah. Can you know the old phrase, "Tell me something by tell me something"? Tell me Gov lives in the USA without telling me he lives in the USA would be my comment on this one.
The one thing I will say about being too nice, there have been some people who have got in quite a large amount of hot water for not being too nice near where we sit. That has caused issues for the club. So I think not everybody in the stadium is too nice.
Tunnel club dissent, disgraceful.
You're throwing your mother under the bus like that, Steve.
Well, I just want a ban because then I get a ticket from a mate as well, don't I?
All right, Steve.
Although no taxi driver, so yeah, that's a tricky one.
There is that. Right. So next, so we did sort of. This was just before their goal. Kulu squared it back to Sonny, who it was a bit of a tricky ball to take. I thought he was on the bounce. He sort of got a side foot to it. Did well to hit the post. Keeper probably wouldn't have got there, would he? I don't think.
No, I don't think so. If that had snuck in the corner, that's a brilliant goal, because it's not really a chance. It's a half chance that you've got to strike well and get the direction perfect, which is not easy. And the fact that he got that close probably surprised me.
So much like Gov, and I agree with him when he says, I hate the whole, if that was in the middle of a pitch, it'd be a foul. I also hate the whole, if the ball was just there, like a little bit to the left, then the keeper wouldn't have got there. Like, it wasn't there, so it's kind of meaningless. I don't know. It's just something that really irks me. It's like, if Sonny had hit it top right corner, the goalkeeper wouldn't have got it.
Yeah, my mum's favourite is he sent him the wrong way from the penalty spot. No. No, he probably didn't. The keeper just dived the wrong way. Nothing to do with the guy kicking the ball. But football phrases, aren't they fun?
So we look like we're in a decent position here. And about 10 seconds later, they get a free kick because Bentancur's trying to play a bit of a blind pass. And is that Maddison just to the right? He's trying to play it to. And it got intercepted, and they break. And Bentancur on the right there brings Eze down. So the first question is, everyone's saying it was a needless free kick. Did he need to bring him down, or could he let him run? HG.
I mean, he could have let him run. I mean, I think if you're looking at that, if Easy's able to continue, he's going to cut in on his right foot, and then Van der Ven's probably going to have to change direction to block it. It's an understandable free kick to give away. I don't think he needed to do it, but I don't mind that he did it. I don't think that's the reason that they scored. We'll probably get onto the free kick in a bit, but yeah, there are enough defenders, but like Romero's watching the ball. There are no runners really for him to take care of. Emerson's between the two centre backs. It just seems like, yeah, weirdly enough, kind of like our equaliser, where the defenders, watch the ball, or they fail to see what players could be doing. They're just tracking runs and tracking areas.
Okay, just want to respond. Sorry, Steve, before you come in, John, we will be doing a Villa preview on Friday. But in answer to your question, yes, Sonny will play in the middle against Villa because Richarlison's out injured. Yeah. Right. Let's discuss this free kick, Stephen. You must have had a good view of this from where you were.
Annoyingly, yeah. And a few of us are actually saying that wall's in a weird place. It's like when they've got the training goals set up before the game and they're warming up. It's like you put the wall over to that side. It was miles out, wasn't it? And you got to think when the free kick goes to goalie's side, he's going to be saving it.
Also, I mean, if you look at the lines of the pitch, running from the goal line out to the edge of the penalty area, half the wall are sort of a good 3 foot away from the post. I know they have to be overlapped because of curling, if the left footer curls it, but it's a long way over. And the other one is, here we go. This is my point. Vic position. As far as I'm concerned, the far end of the goal is the goalkeeper's.
Yep.
He should be saving that. It didn't go right in the top corner. It was a good, powerful shot, but it didn't go right in the top corner. I think Vicario has to take the blame. A, he sets up the wall, and B, he should be standing that side.
Yeah, and this is it. Like, if the left foot is able to get it over the wall and into the corner, then you give him credit for doing it, right? But when you look at that, you see those 3 Palace players in a wall. They're not even in front of any of our players. You'd have to think, like, what are they going to do? Stand there and stop? No, they're going to move. They're absolutely going to move out the way, and then it becomes the strength of the shot versus the strength of the keeper. And I mean, Eze did hit it really, really well, but by the time Vicario's reacted, the ball's over halfway to the goal. It's got to be on the keeper. He needs to be at least a step closer to that left-hand post, or to his left hand as we're looking, and then he has a better chance of saving it. But to be in the middle of the goal between 2 walls, so he can see where the ball is perfectly, it seems, something needs to change.
There's a nice angle from the south stand that I got, and I mean, that left foot has got to do some curl to get it over around that wall, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably move Emerson Royal half a body in, and he'd be fine, right? I mean, I don't see like it's part of the problem, but it's not really the problem. The problem is that Vicario has got a perfect view of the ball and doesn't seem to think that it's almost like he doesn't think the Crystal Palace players are going to move, and that somehow one of them is going to have to kind of kick it through that gap like it's a crazy golf hole. He's got to kick it through the gap before he can get to the goal, and obviously that would be ridiculous. So it's poor from Vicario. I don't really blame anyone else apart from him, because he's the one who set the ball up. He's the one who's put himself there, and he's allowed Eze to beat him relatively easily from there.
And also,
I mean, it was a really good strike. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, strike, but was Wharton really going to take it? Yeah, out of those 2 players, who do you think is going to hit their free kick?
Quite.
And surely you can set your wall up and your goalkeeper positioning for the most likely outcome. And Wharton doesn't score too many 20-plus yard free kicks.
You followed his career a lot, have you?
For the 5 minutes before the session, yeah.
I do wonder if part of it, absolutely, obviously, he couldn't, had the Palace 3 players not been there, he probably would have been a foot to his left. But I do wonder how much is Vicario backing himself, because he's made so many amazing saves this year where he just thinks, I will pretty much save anything. But obviously didn't.
If that's the case, then wouldn't he be off his line a little bit? Wouldn't he be closing the angle down a little bit? If you think that, okay, he's going to kick it as hard as he can through that gap, then I might want to. I mean, again, I'm not a keeper, so to me, my understanding of it is that that's really Vicario's fault. right? And I don't like blaming people because it's a great strike from Easy, and it's a good goal, but it shouldn't have been as easy as it was, and that was down to Vicario.
Yeah. So 1-0 down, standard Tottenham, really, isn't it? Over the last 2 or 3 years, really, isn't it?
Yep.
But particularly under Angeball. But we all knew we've scored 37 games in a row. We knew we should score at some point. And HG's favourite player, Brennan Johnson. Now, I don't think 2 months ago he'd have done this. I don't think he'd have forced the error. But he's definitely improving. I think there's a long way to go with young Brennan, but he's becoming stronger as a player. He's putting himself into more challenges as well. I don't know if that's a conscious thing, whether he's just coming over his injury or what, but he forced an error. It was a pretty poor mistake by Anderson, to be fair, wasn't it, actually?
Yeah. I mean, like, as much as Johnson is a massive part of the goal, to me, if Anderson does his job, doesn't matter. Like, I don't think that Brennan Johnson is particularly eager to get there and make life difficult for him. It does look like he's jogging, but when Anderson allows the ball to drop and takes a touch, then as you see in the second picture, like, Brennan Johnson is there to get a foot in. But if Anderson hits that first time, like he probably should, on like a half volley back to the keeper, then there is no problem. So yeah, like it's great from Brennan to be more involved because he does go missing quite a bit when he's on the pitch. Like it's a weird thing with him that he seems to be there when it matters, but for the rest of the time you don't know what he's doing. But for him to get involved, and it's his work that created the goal. He is the reason that we're level at this point. It's because Brennan Johnson decided to follow the defender.
Daniel's got a question for you. Is he your new favourite Lamela?
Like it's the weird thing between the two of them is that, like, Lamela would have run and probably fouled Anderson trying to win the ball, right? And people would have loved him for it. And I never thought that Lamela was great on the ball. That was the problem. It was never anything else. It was just, did I trust him to make the right pass? And I kind of feel the same about Brennan Johnson. I don't hate either of them. I just think that if Spurs want to be what I want them to be, only being good at some things sometimes is not good enough. So don't get HG. This is true. This is very true. Like, I don't hate the guy. I'm happy that he started the recovery. He started the comeback. He was a massive part of it. The 3 points really are down to him, but it doesn't mean I think he's really good enough right now. I mean, a sub is probably the best he can hope for.
Yeah, I mean, Paul's made a really good point. Johnson against tied legs he's good, and that's, I think, really. That was the plan at the beginning of the season, that he wouldn't play so many games. Obviously, he got forced into it due to the number of injuries we had.
I'll tell you what, go back one. Johnston's positioning is interesting there, isn't it? Clearly, he's expecting.
Well, he's expecting a back pass.
Yeah, Anderson to pass the ball back.
So there you go. So interesting that we saw a tweet. I think HG found it from somebody filmed it from the other side of the stadium, where you actually see Son go in and then pull out for the cutback, and a couple of the Palace defenders went with him, which then opened the space for Werner, who did make a very good in and out run, like almost like you were saying earlier, Steve, to tap it in at the far post. Yeah,
agreed.
Why not? So atmosphere go up then, Steve?
Sorry, say again.
Did the atmosphere go up?
Yeah, massively. Absolutely went up. And I think, we, like we said earlier, we always know that when the crowd get behind the team, the atmosphere in the stadium is brilliant. When they don't, you can hear a pin drop. So yeah, absolutely it went up.
So, and then after a nice bit of play, we end up getting a throw in. Emerson took it quickly to Madders.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard this described earlier as a Hoddle-esque lob into the box. I was thinking it was a bit like Mickey Hazard almost, the way he just dinked it over. Go on, HD.
I mean, Hoddle's a bit before my time, sadly. Only a little bit, but I don't, it just wasn't on TV as much back then. like I've seen Maddison given loads of credit for this assist. It seems to be a bit of a put it into an area and see what happens. I don't think there's a great deal of skill involved. Care maybe, because he's obviously trying to hit the one player that he could get there, but it felt like we took advantage of situations. But there's no way they've learned this on the training pitch. Like Emerson Royals found Maddison in space. Maddison's thinking, well, what can I do? I'm just going to lift it into the box. Like maybe I'm being harsh, but I didn't feel like this was anything to maybe that would remind me of Hoddle. It just felt like, okay, more like a rugby up and under kind of, but with care.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Maybe they're getting ready for the rugby in a couple of weeks at Spurs.
You haven't mentioned this, Steve. You going at all?
Of course I'm going. Go to everything at Spurs.
And then
3 and 4 apparently. I don't know why I missed versions 1, 2, and 3, but I hope they're good.
Did Johnson know anything about his assist in this goal? Because it just seemed to ping ball off him.
No,
he didn't know. I mean, it came from absolutely nothing, and we're grateful. But sorry, go on.
As MS says, Sonny, was there any other doubt? I mean, you said it yourself earlier, Steve. The difference between when Werner goes through and when Sonny goes through, you just feel so confident that he's going to put it in, and it'd be more of a shock if Sonny didn't score. But going back to Werner, so he scored his first goal. How much of a difference do you think that will now make, Steve? I'll start with you, to him.
And it's difficult to say because I'd be tempted to say a lot of difference, and I want it to make a lot of difference. So I do quite like him, and I think for the amount of money we'd have to pay to get him, I would be looking to sign him at the end of the season. But he doesn't come across as somebody who's particularly low in confidence. Like all his interviews after the game, he's really bubbly, really professional. He doesn't come across as like a confidence player. So I don't know whether it's going to change anything really, but I would love him to come good at Spurs, and not just because he was so bloody crap at Chelsea, he could stick 2 fingers up them. But I'd love him to come good, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference.
HG, before he went to Chelsea, he scored 25 goals in a season in the Bundesliga. What's the difference?
The way that Leipzig played was a big part of it. Like a load of the goals I remember him scoring were on the break. The ball's played over the top. He runs onto it and smashes it. Like there was very little guile to me about Timo Werner. Like he'd always play with a strike partner. He'd always play with 2 attacking midfielders behind to kind of create. And his job was to be on the last shoulder and make life difficult. And if Spurs are in a game like that, where maybe the other team is on the halfway line and he has space to run into, then brilliant. But you've got to hope that he's going to stay on side. It feels like a very specific kind of knife, right? Like Werner will come good in certain situations with certain players, and if Angeball is going to be the same way regardless of opponent, then I'm not too sure. Like I want someone who I trust a bit more. If they do beat a man, to find a decent cross. I feel like Werner's got the pace to hurt defenders for sure, but whether I trust him at the end of it, I don't. Frankly, the amount of times I've seen him, I don't. So if we played a different way, or if he was at a club that played a different style of football, then he may well turn out to be a 10, 15 goal a season striker in the Premier League. I believe it. But at Chelsea, where teams would defend deep, because Chelsea, especially when Tuchel was there, like Chelsea would have the ball and want to control the game, and there's not much space for Werner to run into. If Spurs are going to play like that, then Werner to me is quite limited. I don't think it's a coincidence that the best chance he's had in the Spurs shirt, apart from the goal, which was a tap-in, but the best chance created was on the counter-attack when he ran away from the defence. That's when you see him, and then you hope that those chances will go in. But if we don't play like that regularly, then you're almost taking away the best thing about him.
Yeah. So stats, we had 78% possession, they 22. Apparently it's the most number of passes we've completed or made in any Premier League game ever, 730 odd or something like that. But like you said earlier, HG, if it's just side to side, it's all a bit pointless, isn't it?
To me, yes. Like I mean, we're probably not going to talk about the City United game, right? But to me, the games were very similar in the idea that like the away side went 1-0 up and then just defended, but City created chances, much better chances than Spurs did. Like we can sit here and say if Werner scores that chance in the first half, we win 4-1, but the game would have played out completely differently. I want to see Spurs creating chances because I know that we've got players to take them. So, yes, it's lovely to score 3 every week, but I don't want the 3 to be in the final 15 minutes of the game. I want Spurs to be creating chances throughout the first half, and because we've got players that will take them. So it feels as like almost like the difference between City and Spurs is that when you watch City, their attacking midfielders just wait for the ball. Like I was surprised when they're 1-0 down that they weren't just giving the ball to De Bruyne, who to me is levels above everyone else that they have. But De Bruyne was often in that second half kind of stationed out on the left, waiting for the ball to get to him. And Foden would do the same. They don't have those attacking midfielders don't go back to the centre backs to get the ball. If you see Spurs, Bentancur does that quite a lot. Maddison does that quite a lot. And if they go back to progress it, that's great. But you've got 2 players less to pass the ball to. All you can do is pass it to the players around you. So I understand that Maddison is a better passer than Royal, and Bentancur is a better passer than Udogie. But if those players aren't in your position, who are you passing it to? You're passing it to Werner out on the left, who, if he's got space, will run at someone. If he doesn't, it just goes back. And it goes to Kulusevski, who doesn't have the pace. So it usually gets held up and might come back. Spurs need to figure out a way to get that back 5 that we have, the 2 centre backs and the inverted fullbacks and the defensive midfielder. They're the ones that need to move the ball forward. I don't want to see Maddison go back and get it. I don't want to see Bentancur, whoever it is, go back and get it. They need to be higher up the pitch trying to create chances.
Yeah. Steve, there we are on 50 points, sitting in 5th place. Obviously, we had Did you talk about the extra Champions League space on Friday in the NHG after I left?
A little bit. I don't remember.
Okay. We'll go into that in the international break then.
Okay.
Because we'll have a better idea after this round of European fixtures. Mm-hmm. So we're 5 points behind Villa, who we play on Saturday. I don't think any of us will... Sunday.
I really hope we're not playing them on Saturday, yeah.
Oh, shush. I don't think any of us are going to be on Friday's show. So we'll have a very quick 2 minutes on this. Obviously, when we play them at home, we're expecting to get beaten, and we actually played them off the park until Matty Cash took out Bentancur. Mm-hmm. And we should have been 3 or 4 up by that point because Kulusevski hit the post from about 3 yards, and Udogie was through 1-on-1 and put it wide, and there was chances. They like to play a high line, which suits us as long as we don't get. But they do love an offside. How do you see this playing out, HG?
I mean, I'd be amazed if it finishes goalless. I mean, I know Spurs score every game. That seems to be the thing. Like when we equalised, my instinct was, yes, we've scored. Not okay. Now we can go on a winning because I was happy that the record was still going. The Villa game, yeah. I mean, if you look at like everyone says that Spurs have a bad defence, right? But Villa's is about as bad as ours. Do you know? Okay, they played a game more, but they're not a great defense. They will concede goals. They will concede chances. So it's going to be one of those games where who takes the most will win. I hope that's every game. It's not just this one. But it feels like if it falls to Son, we might score a couple. But we need to get the balance right. Like I think Sarr, if he's fit, will probably play because we have to try and control things. But we need to be able to play through them and play around them. And Villa hopefully will, they don't have, what's his face, Kamara. So their midfield isn't quite as defensively secure as it was. But yeah, I mean, if Luton could score 3 past them, we should score a couple past them. The question is whether we can make sure they don't score a couple as well.
Steve, obviously there's a picture that's done the rounds many times of Romero injured on the sideline in his civvies, looking at Matt Cash after Bentancur has been put on the ground. Everyone reckons he's going to be put into Rosette. Do you think anything's going to happen to Mr. Cash?
I'm torn. I'm very torn. I mean, I think it depends how the game goes. I think if a game starts to get a bit needly, I think tackles could go in on him. But I'm hoping Romero sees a bit of sense, because the last thing we want is Romero getting sent off and suspended yet again.
Yep.
So I would much rather us just beat them and Matty Cash walk off rather than Romero absolutely clatter him, get sent off, and have Matty Cash stretched off.
Yeah, like we would be foolish to go after him, because everyone thinks that we're going to go after him. The referees will be looking for it.
Yeah.
It's just like, if it's the 90th minute and we've subbed Oliver Skip on, brilliant, kneecap him.
Can we bring Lamella back for one game?
Sadly, Lamella's got a back injury, so can't play. But yeah,
I am shocked.
Yeah, aren't we all? It's crazy. We can't get involved in this, right? Like, we were better than Villa until that injury. We haven't played really that well since. I mean, that the performance against Newcastle, who were on their last legs after various Champions League games at that point. So even that has a big asterisk. But I just, for Spurs to win the game, it's got to be 11. We've got to have 11 players, and pray that the chances we create are taken. But we will do it.
And you mentioned that.
Sorry, Steve. This was Matty Cash that crocked Doherty as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
And he's done another player in another club as well. I can't remember who now.
He did an Arsenal play, didn't he, recently as well, which was a little bit funny.
That's fine. Then. Shit, what was I going to say? HD, you mentioned Newcastle were a bit leggy. I think Villa could be, because they go to Ajax Thursday night.
Yeah.
They're flying back, and okay, I'm clutching a bit here, but they're flying back Thursday night, Friday morning. Rest days and that, they really haven't got long, because it's 1 o'clock kickoff, I think, isn't it? So it's even a fairly early kickoff on a Sunday. They have not got long to train and recover.
Their game is an earlier kickoff. I think they've got the 5:30 game.
5:45. Yeah.
5:45 game. Yeah. So.
Okay. Because they'll be home by midnight. I mean, they'll get home at a decent time then, because Amsterdam's only an hour's flight from London, if that. So it's.
It'll be Birmingham, won't it?
I know, but do you know what I mean? It's an extra 10 minutes to Birmingham. It would have been nice if they were going to flipping Azerbaijan or something, but
presumably they can have one eye on the return game a week Thursday as well.
Yes.
So they would not want to be playing us on Sunday afternoon.
No, it's the best time for us to play them, because if this is their only Conference League tie, if they lose to Ajax and they're out, then we are the only team that get to play them between European ties, right? Anyway, so it has to benefit Spurs, and as we said, if Luton can score against them, Spurs should be able to as well, regardless of whether they've played in Ajax, and if they play their strongest team or whatever they choose to do. They may not go with their strongest team against Ajax because they know there's a second game coming up. But if anyone knows how to handle the workload, it's Emery. So I'm more interested in the fact that the game is so early on a Sunday. I don't know when the last time I saw a 1 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday. It seems ridiculously early. 2 o'clock, fine. 3 o'clock for those Europa League teams. They're usually 3 o'clock games. I think all the other ones are at 3. So why is it at 1? That's an interesting.
Because Liverpool, Man City is at 3:45 on police request.
Oh, so that's why. So Liverpool, Man City can't be played later like it usually would be. And, I mean, if I was
same as Man City United was early this week, wasn't it? A little bit earlier.
Yeah, it was, but I didn't. That's just crazy.
Obviously, City and Liverpool have had a few issues with crowds, haven't they, in recent times? There you go.
Okay. But if I was Villa, I'd be upset that the game's being moved because of something else happening. But hopefully it works for Spurs.
Sorry, Steve, say again.
I'm upset. I'm going to have to get up early to drive over there.
Right.
They'll have some sandwiches waiting for you, Steve, I'm sure.
Well, last time it was chicken nuggets and chips. So, yeah.
Delicacies of the Midlands. Okay, who's going to win? Actually,
I think it's going to be a draw. I mean, I think it's going to be a draw. Like, Spurs can't afford to lose. That's it. But it's going to be a draw.
Stevie?
I'm going to go for the same prediction I had last time, when obviously we got absolutely crumped for them last season. I think we're going to win 2-1.
Okay. Gav's got a question. I don't know the answer to this. Are Villa in the naughty stuff for FFP, Steve?
Yes, purely on the basis that we're apparently the only team who aren't. I don't really know, to be honest. So they have spent a lot, haven't they? And their revenues are pretty low. So I genuinely don't know, but
I think they made a loss. They made a loss of what, 120 million last year in the 22-23. So you'd imagine they don't have much wiggle room. I don't know what they've done since then, right? Obviously, that will play a role, but I don't think they've sold anyone. Maybe a few of their youngsters, like what's the guy who went to Sheffield United, Archer. They sold him for a fair chunk of money.
Yeah,
that's right. So they have sold a couple of academy players, but yeah, 150. I mean, I'm not really sure what the difference between profit sustainability and FFP and if they're all connected or not. But 120 million loss seems like that's unsustainable, even with rich, benefactors like they have. So yeah, I don't know if they're in trouble though.
I mean, what we do know is that Arsenal are a bit in the doo-doo, looking at their accounts that have come out recently. And obviously Spurs accounts will need to come out in the next 26 days, as do all the clubs will have to be out by the end of the month. So that'd be quite interesting. Yep. I think Chelsea's will be interesting in particular as well. Gov, 105 million on 3 years. Yes, that's correct. Obviously, you can account for infrastructure and academies money doesn't count. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, that gets stripped out in the calculation.
Yeah.
But I mean, Villa haven't changed anything. Villa haven't invested anything in infrastructure since about 1840. So the stadium is crap.
We've got a Villa fan hopefully on Friday, and we can ask them a bit more information hopefully. So I'll add that to Jack's run sheet. I just want to go through very quickly. I apologise for the graphic. I did this very quickly on Excel, so it's a bit of a hodgepodge. The left-hand side, I've put our fixtures. Obviously, the day of the week might change depending on TV picks.
Right.
And I've put where the international break is and when the European games are, just to give us an idea of when we might be able to play the rearranged game against Chelsea as a starting point. In the middle, at the top, are the current 7 Premier League games that need to be rearranged. And at the bottom are the FA Cup quarter-final games on the left, and on the right are the games played in the Premier League on the weekend of the semi-final that relates to those teams. So, for example, Wolves are due to play Arsenal on the weekend of the semi-final. Man United are due to play Newcastle. Liverpool due to play Fulham. Chelsea due to play Brighton. And we are due to play Manchester City. So there's a fair chance that our game against Man City on the 20th of April weekend is going to be moved.
Yep.
Obviously, it looks like we've got 2 free midweeks that I put in yellow there. So you think, easy. But the problem is, if Chelsea beat Leicester, they then need to have rearranged games against Arsenal, Spurs, and Brighton. Brighton's still in Europe. Arsenal is still in Europe. If there's only 2 midweeks that aren't European weeks, you'd expect possibly, if Brighton and Arsenal stay in, that we might have to play Chelsea on a Champions League week, even though UEFA don't like the big leagues playing games, especially live televised games during those weeks. The Chelsea game is due to be a live game. Obviously, originally it was supposed to be on Friday before the EFL Cup final. So there's a lot of permutations here. Go on.
Sorry, I think a lot of it comes down to Brighton and Europe, right? Because they've got Roma, which won't be easy for them. They're good enough to do something, but their league form has been pretty bad. So if Brighton go out, then that Chelsea-Brighton game can go pretty much anywhere. And I suspect that Sky, being Sky, will want to show the Chelsea-Arsenal and the Chelsea-Spurs games, right? So I'd be looking at the weekend that we play Burnley, okay, which is a Saturday right now, if it might change. But that weekend, I suspect that they might try and put the Chelsea-Brighton game on that, or they'll move the Chelsea game to the Friday night that weekend, and then they'll put a Chelsea game on the Monday and the Thursday of that midweek at the end of the season. So they could go Friday, Monday, Thursday, and then Sunday, whoever they've got the last game. Because for Chelsea, it doesn't really matter, right? Like it will only help them if they think they're going to be in the FA Cup final, which I guess is the week after that final week. But that to me seems the most logical thing, that if you need to add in a couple of, like having a midweek where Chelsea play 2 games, then they just move that 11th May fixture for Chelsea to the Friday night. And then on the Monday and Thursday, they can put in Chelsea versus whoever, on one of them. And they'll find a way to make it work, right? They'll find a way that if they have to move the Spurs game to the Friday, then they probably will. They will find a way. I guess that maybe there's a bank holiday at some point in there. That might work.
The bank holiday weekend will be the weekend of the Liverpool game.
Okay.
Just the Monday after.
So the 5th is a holiday in England, right?
The 6th will be the bank holiday.
The 6th is
Monday,
okay.
So the Liverpool game will get moved to the Sunday the 5th, assuming they're still in Europe, because they'll be playing Thursday.
But oh yeah, it's true. Yeah, so that one's definitely moving. Yeah, I mean, it's like Chelsea are the issue, not really Spurs, right? Like it's what they do with that. We know that Sky will want to show Chelsea Spurs and Chelsea Arsenal, right? We know that. So the Chelsea Brighton game, they might want to show normally, but that's probably unlikely. So they're hoping that Leicester win that FA Cup tie. So then the Chelsea Brighton game gets played when it's supposed to, and I'm hoping for that too, because obviously I want Chelsea out. So we'll go there, but there will be some Friday, Monday, Thursday shenanigans at some point for them to find a way to work it.
Just wondering, John.
Yeah.
What day do we play Villa? You said Saturday earlier.
Sunday. I told you to shush.
Well, the 11th is Monday, mate.
Oh, okay. Well, I told you I did this in a rush, as you know, because you were WhatsApping me and you were getting all needy, sending me more WhatsApps because I hadn't replied to you. I was like, I'm busy.
You put up a spreadsheet in front of an accountant and you don't expect him to audit it.
I should have got you to do it for me, shouldn't I? Really?
There's a comment from Gov about why Chelsea weren't forced to play the same midweek that Liverpool played their game, because Sky had chosen it for coverage. That's why.
Yeah.
And so Sky want that game. I mean, you don't blame them. I mean, of course they want it. They want to show it. They want it to be a big night under the floodlights somewhere. And so that's why. But yeah, logically they could have played it that week, but it would have clashed with Europe. And there are it's one of those weird things that don't the Premier League pay a fine if they show a game live at the same time as a European match. Whereas the Liverpool-Luton game wasn't on TV in England, so they could show it. They could play it. There was no problem. Whereas for Chelsea Spurs, it's complicated, isn't it? It's all to do with money.
Did you watch that Liverpool game in Austria?
Yeah, it was on here.
It's just baffling, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I guess that the way, because it's all to do with domestic, isn't it? Like they want. Like people in England, they think people in England should be more concerned about a Champions League tie than they are about Liverpool versus Luton. But why I would care about either? Do you know what I mean? I think that's the only way they think. Well, anyone in Austria, they can choose who they want. But if it's in England, we want a market the size of England to be watching Champions League stuff, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they would care if Austria played at the same time. If they played a league game at the same time. I think they would care if it's England or Germany or Italy or Spain or one of the bigger ones. But I am sure that Sweden probably play a game on a Champions League Tuesday. I don't know this, but you'd suspect that UEFA are a bit more. I know we want the big markets to watch our football.
Steve, Gov saying if any of us, it's going to be you, isn't it, are going to go out to the States for the World Cup, to let him know. You going to go to the States for the World Cup, Steve?
I don't know. Hopefully.
There you go.
Plan it, Steve. Yeah. It'd be a honeymoon.
You could do like Cheese Room on tour, couldn't you? Honeymoon.
I mean, like it's weird because what's happening? Is it the Olympics soon? When's the Olympics? That's also in California at some point soon. maybe 28 is the Olympics, and 26 is the World Cup in the States. But yeah, I work until July the 1st, so there's no point. By the time I get there, all the games I could afford to go to have happened.
Cool. There we go. So we've been going back just over an hour. The guys, Jack, will be back on Friday. So we've got a Villa fan, we've got Sean Butler from Spurs Talk, and Jack's found someone else as well. I can't remember who it is now. So all I'd like to say, please do like, subscribe, put a comment in if you're watching this afterwards, or even if you're watching now, please put a comment afterwards. It helps us out. And thank you very much for watching. HG, thanks for joining on this random Tuesday.
No problem. Yeah, the drugs have kicked in long enough to do this, so thank you.
You told me I was the drug dealer.
Well, you are, but in a different way.
Legal alcohol. Just if there's any doubt.
Legal drugs. Legal drugs. Hard drugs.
Yeah, legal drugs.
Legal drugs. Okay.
Stephen, you'll be back at some point, hopefully, to discuss Tottenham's really exciting accounts, 57 pages or whatever it'll be.
It will be fascinating, I'm sure.
I'm sure you'll find on Sunday. Hopefully, you'll find out when they might be released. So we've got a bit of a heads up to the show.
I will ask. I never get told anything interesting, so I won't be told anyway. But I will ask.
And thank you for watching, everyone. And come on, you Spurs!
Come on, you Spurs!
I go to the games. So I'm not allowed to chant because we don't make noise.